I'm drinking coffee at 1:45 in the afternoon.
Hope you get sleep later.
I think I'll find a way.
Okay, so we're coming off a holiday weekend.
Mm-hmm.
We're now post Thanksgiving. Last podcast came out on Thanksgiving. So we're gonna talk about judgment as our official pod topic today before we kick off into all of those things and recap the holiday. Welcome to our podcast called Enneagram Adventure, where we talk about life and experiences through the lens of the Enneagram. Hopefully you find it entertaining. Maybe you learn something along the way. But we're all about using our own personal stories to help others develop self-awareness. Tana and I are IEQ9 certified coaches with that particular Enneagram tool. So we know some stuff about the Enneagram. That's what that really means. We know some
We know
stuff.
some things. We know
Is
some
there
things.
anything you want to add?
I think just to add, we're going to be talking about judgment, which sometimes can be confused for behavior if you're not careful. So, as a reminder, the Enneagram is different than any other personality assessment out there, with it being focused on your core motivation and not your behaviors. So, we're going to be talking about this through the lens of like each number and how they might judge or show up, linking back to their core motivation. But like this is less of like the behavior of the judging, but the motivation behind the judging.
Right. And we're going to try to touch on how they judge themselves and how
Mm-hmm.
they judge others, because that could also be different.
Yep. I did take a note on this for one, so just to throw a curveball in there, what if we start with ones and like go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9?
And that's trying to make us organized on this one because we were not organized at all on the last one. If you listened to
I
it,
know,
thank
maybe
you.
that's
Thank
why
you
I'm doing
for
that.
listening. So,
Thank you for
so we're
coming
gonna go
back.
in order
Wow.
today. That's the short version. Got
That's
it.
the short
Okay.
version. So, type 1, for those of you who are new to us, our type 1 is the strict perfectionist, or also known as the reformer. So, we have a few type 1s that we both know. But when I was thinking about this, it's more of like when when it shows that they're judging others. So, it might be like, oh, I'm going to critique that you've made a mistake or something that is inefficient, or holding everyone to that same like really high standard that they hold themselves to, or potentially feeling a bit morally superior, like that real strong right and wrong.
Yeah, for sure. Ones will judge right and wrong
Mm-hmm.
through their own lens, of course, and they'll be like, no, this is right or this is wrong. And sometimes it's very clear, and they have very, you know, logical, backed up reasons for that opinion. What I think is interesting is, for me personally, I often have felt the most judged by ones, but I think it was in part because growing up, my stepdad is one. And so sometimes I think for me, the judgment I was feeling coming from the ones was tied back to, this is the same sort of energy that I would get from my stepdad in terms of like feeling the judgment or the not good enough or the all of that coming from him, which does not necessarily mean all ones are that way. It's just how I'm experiencing them through the lens of my own upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that's super interesting, though, is when ones judge themselves, they are so, so harsh, and they judge themselves over anything they perceive as like a dumb mistake, like a mistake they don't believe they should have made. So,
Yep. The one can take some harsh criticism though, because nobody's going to be harder on them than themselves. So I think they do get, like when they are kicked by a mistake, they kick themselves so much harder.
yeah.
And so that may be where some of the judgment comes from with them, right? Is the right versus wrong, and I know because I've punished myself for this before.
Right. Yeah, you can't make it worse on me than I make it on me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which is a good tie to what we were talking about before, where it's an ego pattern. So a
Right.
judgment can also be an ego pattern. If we think about the ego in the sense of close to a definition, it's a mechanism in which we use to protect ourselves. 100, however many years ago, it was because we needed to survive. And now we're surviving social threats or whatever it may be. So when we judge, there's a pretty significant chance that we're judging to try to protect ourselves in some way.
Yeah, for sure. It's an opportunity for us to, in the age that we are in today, where we don't need to we don't need to survive physically. That's what I'm trying to get to. We are not living in the woods, hunting and gathering, being chased by lions and bears. That so we can let down some of the judgment differently. I don't know. I did not say that very well at all. I'm like having a hard time today.
No, the way that I think about it, I see it on socials sometimes. It's like, unfortunately, my nervous system can't tell the difference between being chased by a bear and not being invited to a party.
Yes. Yeah, it's that. Like, so then we just need to like sit down and like question, like, why are we feeling how we're feeling? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the one might judge others for any one of those things, but they are also judging themselves.
Yeah. I think ones can also judge others when they don't want to get better. Ones are often driven in their sense of right and wrong by this idea of it can always be better. Sometimes ones are called the reformer, for example. And it is that idea of we can always get better. We can always get better. It can always be more perfect, right? That constant raising the bar, more perfect, more perfect, more perfect. And so they can get judgy of people who get complacent, who don't want to be better.
Well, it's a little bit that moral superiority, right? A
Yeah.
little bit, where it's not real three energy of like, let's be better to win,
No,
but
it's
it's
to be
be
better
better to
for,
be right and
yeah.
perfect. I must be right and perfect.
Yeah. To be better for better's sake. Yeah.
Hopefully, people leave this episode feeling seen and not judged.
Yeah. We're not judging. We're not judging. Yes, this goes back to like every type has a gift, right? There's a gift in all of this, but I think we're headed into the season. Just came off of the first holiday in the holiday season if you don't count Halloween.
Yeah,
And it's going to be lots of opportunities to judge and feel judged in the next 3 to 4 weeks.
for sure. 'Tis the season, but also the season of judgment everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. All right.
Twos,
Twos.
I have a few different things I judge other people for, probably most. One of them is for if people don't like match my emotional, like, I'm gonna give to you and then I'm gonna give back. Like, if people don't match that emotional give for me, I often judge people for that. I judge people for not caring as much as I do.
I think that's a big one for twos.
I think those are my two big ones.
How do you judge yourself? What's the like call outs for like when you're judging yourself?
When I'm judging myself, it's that I'm not doing enough. So it's almost like the same things.
Sure.
Or when I've received something from someone else, if I don't fall all over myself to match it, then it feels entitled or like I didn't
That's
do enough to appreciate that other person.
that's interesting.
But the entitlement stuff is a huge tie back to my upbringing. It's not like, was it last episode you talked about the starving children in
Oh, it was a
Africa that
couple
you were
ago,
always
yes.
told,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. A couple
clean
ago,
plate
yeah.
club, that whole thing?
Hmm.
It's a little bit like that, where it's like it could always be worse. Like someone is more worse off.
Yeah.
So be appreciative.
Right. How dare you have a need or a want or a
Yeah.
desire because someone has
Yeah.
it so much worse than you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I judge people for that too, by the way.
For having needs and desires?
Mm-hmm.
Or let's talk about that for a second.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because someone always has it worse. I'm like, how dare you?
That's funny.
Mike, I just got done yelling at my kids about this today, you guys. So there's an obscene amount of TVs in my house. It's stupid. It's very overwhelming for my nervous system and everything else. Anyway, the kids have a playroom like on the main floor, right? And yesterday morning, both my kids come downstairs and they're like, I want Bluey. I want this. Like they just keep like they're at war over what they're gonna watch. And I was like, did you know that when I was little, my sister and I had one TV?
And we also walk to school
Literally
uphill both ways in the snow every
just
day.
got done doing this. And then I was like, oh my God, I've turned into my mother. Help.
Oh no. Shoot. Shoot.
But I do that. I do that.
I think that what it goes back to is a little bit what we talked about last week around when like the expectation of gratitude becomes indebtedness,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yes. So it kind of goes
Oh,
back to
yeah.
that a little bit. That's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. I think I remember having a lot of those thoughts, particularly when you, not to switch to fives because we're going to go in order, we're going to go to three, but just to like relate to that thought, I remember having like a similar thought or judgment, particularly in when I was around college age, of like kids who were in college where their parents picked up the tab for them to be there or paid for their car or paid for their whatever. And then they'd complain about shit. And I'd be like, what the actual fuck? Like, you are here
Mm-hmm.
and everything is taken care of. You're going to leave with like $0 in debt when you're
Mm-hmm.
done. That's like a similar kind of energy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. So those are the big things. But I think I've seen it like come out a couple of times in my kids, and it gave me the ick so bad. They're like these little mirrors that walk around the house. It's just like when I look like a scary beast, they're like, look at yourself. Look what we're doing.
It's a
So
topic
glad.
for another day, but I was talking to someone, oh, it's been a little while, about they don't have kids now, but they're talking about having kids. And they were talking about their feelings of how, like, when you have kids, you're just like the shepherd of like this little soul. You actually like don't, it was like the idea of like you don't get to like own them and keep them. You just are like shepherding their soul or their being experience into like whatever they end up making their life. It was
Mm-hmm.
like a very beautiful sentiment. And I was like, oh, maybe I would have wanted to raise kids if I would have thought about it like that.
Oh my God, it's so funny you say that because I just saw something that it's like it's the slowest breakup you've ever had in your life.
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
it is.
Okay,
Okay,
so that's
so
twos.
twos,
Threes.
threes.
The threes I know in my life judge other people for being lazy or if they
Yeah,
perceive them to be lazy,
perceive them as lazy, or
ineffective, or
um they can get really judgy if somebody, I've seen some threes get kind of judgy if they see somebody who's not, they don't think deserves like the admiration or the recognition that they're getting, right? Like
it's an
they didn't earn
accomplishment thing.
that. Yeah, they didn't earn it, or they
Mm-hmm.
don't actually know what they're doing, like that kind of
Mm-hmm.
a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that. I also, it has a very close tie for my two of if I perceive someone doesn't care as much as I do, my second highest number being three, it's so close to that. Like, you're not going to work as hard as me.
Right.
Ew. Ew.
I think it's interesting because there are moments where you've seen somebody, get promoted, or I'm trying to think of like another example that's not so work related. But like there can be instances where you're like, that person definitely did not earn that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be very common and easy to judge stuff like that. Like I can understand it. I can have empathy for that in how the three gets to that conclusion. Where it's dangerous, I think, is when it makes them either treat the person differently, right? Like, is your judgment making you treat someone differently? Or if it becomes about, if it's not really about them, like, oh, that person didn't earn that, it's more about the fact that you wanted it, if that makes sense.
That definitely makes sense. It's a trust thing too, I think, where, well, I'm trying to figure out in my 3 energy if this is like, it's so much easier for me to, I guess, even if I have a relationship with the person and they like achieve something, I'll like gas the people up in my life so much more. Whereas if it's somebody that, let's say it's somebody I used to know but haven't seen, like, let's use college again as an example. I'll have all of those judgmental kind of questions in my head. Because if they're not like one of my humans, they must be evil.
Great. Are we ready to go to 4? Or do we have more 3?
Yeah. Yeah.
Go to
Let's
4?
go to 4. Let's go to 4.
I
The fours
think,
I know judge people for being basic.
yes. Yeah. Lacking any kind of depth. Yes.
And if you, I do this a lot to fours because I try to fix them
Oh,
and they
yeah.
like
They
to
don't
like
really.
sit in stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I've had fours tell me before, like, stop, stop trying to fix it. I just need to be.
They definitely want to, a lot of times, sit in it and come through it on their own. It's one of the reasons that they make, when you're in a place where you need to just like unpack something with someone, 4s are great because you can be like, I'm feeling all of these like angsty feelings or depressing feelings, or I'm sad, or I'm this, or I'm that. And they're just like, yes, tell me more. Versus, well, let's fix that. Like, how do we fix that? So it is for them, when we're trying to fix them, it's sort of like, stop. They don't want that. They don't want our judgment about their
Mm-hmm.
feelings. But they do have these like thoughts about other people, of them not having emotional depth, or, you know, being superficial. They definitely are judging the people around them for that. And
Some
they're
fours I
const
know kind of like get into it with threes because of the inefficiency of the feeling.
and they're like, well, it's not inefficient. My feelings are not inefficient. And the 3 is like, feelings are 100% inefficient. The perception of that. As
Mm-hmm.
as the 4 is like wading through that to get to the answer. I would say a lot of 4s though, and I think about Glennon Doyle a little bit when I think about this, because she's one. I mean, I think there are probably a good number of 4s that are in the public eye in some way. I think Kate McKinnon also was recently on a podcast where she divulged that she's also an Enneagram 4. But when I think about it with Glennon Doyle and the work that she does specifically, if you're familiar with any of her writing, is that she's constantly judging herself through the lens of like never being good enough. So it has like a little titch of like a 1 flavor in the constantly being like, I'm never good enough, I'm never enough. Right. And but for them it's like that, not unique enough, I'm not, like, all of that. And when you do
Mm-hmm.
get in that tension between the 3 and the 4, you can definitely see how that would get really muddy for 4s.
I have to be really careful with a four because, like I said, they can get a little triggered by me trying to like fix it. But I will say, if you leave enough space for them to have the feeling and leave the room for whatever, I have to specifically ask, like, what do you need from me right now? Because I need them to be honest, so I know, like, not to step in it. But that is a way that I've found to navigate that a little bit. So if you're a 3 and you have a 4 in your life, maybe just asking what they need from you in the moment might give you a little bit of a new lens. Anything else for fours that I have some notes, but I think that was it. Just the basic stuff.
I mean, you could spin that off, but that's like the root of what they're judging. It all comes back to that generally.
All right, 5.
Okay, 5. I can be very judgmental of people who have not done the research to back up the things they're talking about. That can be a place where I can get judgy, like, I don't think I'm going to believe you because I don't believe you've done the work to like back up that statement. That can be a place. I think a lot of times in my life, I've been told that I come off as really judgmental. And I think the 5, at least for me, it's not just the research or like well, it is. It's like the knowledge of things. I can think about things like that where I've been told that I come off as judgmental, and it is generally around like a knowing of something. I think I can also be really hard on myself if I should have known. So if I'm caught in a situation and I should have known, then I'll be very hard on myself for not knowing.
Got it. What about I've seen it like this might be a little twisty and might be far-fetched, but do you get upset when people dismiss other people who don't think logically? So maybe they're more driven towards feeling.
I get upset when,
Like let's say, because I'm a feeler,
yeah,
let's say someone said about me, well, she says these things, but she doesn't know that for sure. But you know that I think with feeling rather than logic. Do you get judgmental when people dismiss emotion as a basis for thought?
I think at this point in my life, yes, I would be like, well, no, that's like a data point. And
Mm-hmm.
so I see it differently now when people are like, I feel this way, my gut says, my whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think about that differently than maybe when I was younger. I do think those are important data points today. So like I do get a little bit I can become judgmental of anybody who's like feelings are not facts.
Yeah.
Technically, technically you're right from like a purely literal technical sense. But
Yeah.
they are things that we should pay attention to. And I think part of that, and this goes back to where I would judge myself, part of that is I think about scenarios I have been in, even in the last few years, where I had a feeling about a person or a situation. And I was like, like this doesn't feel great. I don't know why it doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel great. And I ignored it because I was like, but I don't have any basis to like go off of other than this doesn't feel great. It's
Mm-hmm.
and because of the number of times I ignored that and then invested into this person or this situation, a period of time to then have it all blow up and be like, oh, you remember that thing 18 months, 2 years, however long ago it was where you were getting that like spidey sense of like this person, this situation is not okay and you ignored it because you're trying not to be judgmental,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I do think now the older I get, the more I'm like, no, no, like let that person have all of that feeling and let them trust it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, just because of the
Interesting.
number of times I've been so wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. 6.
6.
I've seen 6s judge situations or people very quickly because they've decided that they've thought through everything that could possibly go wrong. I've actually gotten really frustrated with a couple of 6s before because like they've thought through things so much to the point where they have spoken about someone or a situation as if it was fact. But if you really walk through the entire situation, it's just like kind of this chaining that's happened.
Well, and I think 6s sometimes they judge others for not being as worried as they
Mm-hmm.
are. Like, why aren't you
Mm-hmm.
worried about this? Like, you should be worried about this.
Mm-hmm.
And so there can be some judgment from them in those situations. And to your point, like I think because they're thinking through so many scenarios, the other thing that can happen is it when they're, so we talked about this last week and several episodes ago, right? The idea of that when you plan the worst case scenario and then it doesn't happen, your reward, like you train your brain that that's a reward. But there's the opposite effect of that. If you've thought about something and thought about something and thought about something and the worst happens and it's something you didn't think of, then, oh my gosh, like the judgment you placed on yourself. It's a little bit like when I feel like I should have known for them. It's like, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I should have known. I don't know. If I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the flare in my car, I would slide off the road or what, you know what I mean? Like something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sixes. I have a very close six in my life who she is first foot forward, very suspicious of people. So if you are someone who trusts people right away or gives people the benefit of the doubt, she's like, ugh, how many times have you gotten burned by that?
Yeah. That protection thing, right? Like I'm going to protect
Mm-hmm.
myself by.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't you want to protect yourself the same way?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
I think I've run into it with a couple different sixes too that get judgy of people who also don't like who live without plans.
Oh yeah, because how could you? How dare you?
Right.
I think Laura would say that like
Yeah.
while recording right now. How dare you?
Yeah. She
Yeah, I
actually
have.
sent me a message when she listened to one of the episodes about how she does get annoyed. Gets annoyed when plans get changed, like last minute changed.
Yeah.
That's that there could be some of that judgment about that.
Yeah, I've actually had the close six to me in my life say that she's had friends who will actively not tell her things because they feel judged by her when it's more of a could have, should have, would have that happens for her. It's not a judgment. It's just a here's what you could have done. Here's what it's not coming from a negative place or it's not meant to come from a negative place, but the perception is that it's negative
Yeah.
because it happened already. So because they're thinking of like all the scenarios that could have happened instead, it's a judgment.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. We had a friend of ours stayed here last night on her. She lives in Virginia. She will probably listen to this podcast. We talk about her every once in a while. So it's Maggie. Shout out Maggie.
Oh,
Um,
Maggie.
but she was here last night and she and I were talking about, so this is like, I'm going to rabbit hole here for a second on some like quantum physics stuffs. And I don't know enough to be an expert in this. So like, if you're listening to this and you're like having your own sense of judgment about why is she talking about a thing she doesn't fully understand, like just know it's because I'm fascinated by this concept that I'm about to talk about. And it ties to this idea of sixes maybe could give them like a different way to think about all of their worst case scenario planning. So there's this body of work that's being done related to time and quantum physics. Are you like, you know what I'm talking about? Like
Yep.
there's tons of physicists that are doing this like this idea of these different timelines and how this stuff works and time is a construct and like all of this sort of stuff that they're looking at these weird ways that this stuff works scientifically.
Mm-hmm.
And there are starting to be some studies that are coming out about things like deja vu and stuff like that. You and I have talked about this and how little children know things they could not possibly know, but somehow they do.
Yep.
But then there's like also in like the kind of manifestation community, there's this idea of like everything that you desire already exists for you. And it's about you like becoming the person that you need to become to have that thing. But it all goes back to this idea of physics of that all of the things that you could have done exist. Like every decision that you could have made every time you came to a fork in the road and you made this decision, you could have gone left, but you went
Yep.
right. That choice to have gone left is existing in another timeline. like on
Really?
another like plane of being. Yeah, it's super fascinating. And I don't understand like the actual physics that they're studying in this, but it is like this idea of like every choice you ever could have made, you made. And it exists. It's happening someplace else, like on another timeline.
Crazy.
Yes. So all of this to get back to like sixes and all of their if I made this decision, if I made this decision, if I made
Mm-hmm.
this decision, this could have happened. That all is it exists.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So somewhere I am living in like a really cute brownstone in New York, having a super cool job, like an editor or something.
Yes. That version of you
Okay,
exists.
that's
Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I knew she was around somewhere. She's just
Right.
definitely not like hammering out peanut butter and jellies like it's her job, you
Well, she
know?
might be. She might be.
She's definitely not wiping butts. I know that.
It's just that whole concept is very fascinating to me, and they tie it. You and I have talked to deja vu as like future memories before, but
Yeah.
the other thing is that there can be deja vu moments that exist in
That
this
cross with
like
the timeline
yeah, where you're getting
that
where the two
intersect.
timelines intersect or they get really close together. Yeah.
Weird.
Yes.
That's insane.
Yeah. So anyway, this came up last night with Maggie. The other thing I was going to say about it is she was talking about the concept of dreams and from the physics standpoint, right, of like nothing can be created or destroyed. Like you when you have dreams about things, it they aren't it's like we were talking about through I can't say it right. So Maggie, if you might have to send us a message, but something about like you can't make something up that didn't happen. So like
Weird.
yeah. So this
That's
goes
really
back to
weird.
like I had a dream about a coworker and going to get ice cream with their kid last week.
Yeah.
I've never met their kid. So like does that mean that actually happened? I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. It's
Dude,
gonna
I had a
happen.
dream last night that like a friend of mine died and I adopted her kid. Don't tell me that. I can't have another kid.
I don't know. I don't know.
I can't listen. I'm barely how am I responsible for two other beings? Okay.
Anyway, that was sorry, rabbit hole.
7.
7.
The only note that I have on this topic is like if you're a downer, like if you're a Debbie Downer, be like, oh, that person's so negative. Like
Or
raining on the parade.
or for being boring. Like, oh, you're
Yeah.
boring. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that from a 7 because they're always like seeking that out.
Well, and they match energy a lot, right? So like they might perceive you as boring because you're more withdrawn or you're more
Yeah.
something else. I've
Or
seen
being a
sevens do that before.
yeah. Or if you're an overly late, no, I'm not, I can't talk. If you overly plan things, right? Because they also want it to be
Mm-hmm.
spontaneous and fun, and it could take the
Mm-hmm.
fun out if it's like nailed down to every detail, which is fascinating. It's a little bit like the 3-4 thing. It's like there's like a 6-7
I
thing
know. I was
there
just gonna
too.
say that. I was just
Yeah.
gonna say that. And now that I'm thinking through this even more, like there's that control side of 8 that's on the other
Hmm.
side of 7. So like how much of the judgments that are coming up for each number are so closely tied to your wings?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And
It's
because maybe you
crazy.
take on some of that, or maybe you wish you had some of that.
Well, yeah, it's a little bit like it's a little bit of a mirror, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It might be
Everything.
like
Everything's a mirror.
everything's a mirror. It just might be so closely tied to your, like, I've heard ego and judgment talked about before, where it's easier, like, the easiest judgments that you'll make are more closely tied to something about yourself that makes you feel insecure because it's more accessible. Yeah, so sevens might do that.
Think
Yeah,
if
it's like that
sevens are, I just want to
cling
touch
to the
on
routine.
cling to the routine. If they're judging themselves, though, it could be in the that they've overpromised. They have like promised the world to the people around them, and now because they have this big vision and then they can't deliver on said promise. Or maybe it's you and I have talked about this before, but years and years ago, I was teaching the Enneagram, and there was a 7 in the room who talked about when he was a senior in high school that he went to like 20 something graduation parties in one day because he couldn't stand the thought of missing out. So he went for like 10 minutes to like all of these different parties. And so they could also be judging themselves for that, where it's like, I have just overbooked myself. I have overcommitted myself, but I am not missing out on these opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 8, I have notes on because I live with one. For those of you who are new here, my husband is an 8, so the challenger. So he definitely judges for vulnerability because he is so scared of it. Love you. He also has this like a high level of impatience for people who won't stand up for themselves. And then the last one is like if you try to manipulate or lie, he has a huge judgment for that. It's kind of like so again for those of you who are new, it's kind of like the only the strong can survive mentality for an 8.
Yeah.
So he first with the vulnerability piece, it's again, it's because it's such a fear of his, like showing vulnerability equals like I'm not safe, which then that means I don't survive. So I'm going to judge you for having emotions. So I have learned over the soon to be 10 years that we've been married, 15, 16 together, 16, that the best way for me to solve a conflict with him is to work through the emotion in my head, ask myself what story I'm telling myself, and approach it very logically. If I want to just like have the feeling and like say the thing, I'll do that. I got no problem. It's very readily available for me. If I am not looking for a solution, like if I just need to get it out, that's what happens. But if I need like this is a thing that needs to be fixed, I can't do that. Or at least not to solve it efficiently. So that's the judgment there. The weakness part, like people who won't stand up for themselves, it's this concept of even down to like your worth for him. So, like the idea of like never do anything for free, like that's a very hot topic in our house because also I have salaried mindset. He has hourly mindset.
Is he hourly in his role? It's so fascinating to me. Maggie and I were talking about this earlier too. A friend of mine who's a doctor, but she is paid hourly. She works, she works like a point, however they figure that, like in the medical field, like a
Yes.
point eight or a point, however they figure that, where it's like
Yep.
not actually full time.
Yes. So it's very transactional, right?
Yeah.
But a salaried mindset is more of like a little bit here and a little less here, right?
Right. It all comes out in the end.
It all comes out in the wash, right?
Yeah.
So it's that for him too. These are all things that he judges himself for, by the way. So, like, when he is showing emotion, he has a significant amount of judgment for himself. When he is doing something that is inefficient or is like a perception of not worth the effort, the time, the whatever, there's judgment because it's a waste. It's wasteful. And then what did I say the last one was? It was the judgment, it was the vulnerability. I think I took a note on it. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Nope, I didn't. Anyway, yeah, that's where it shows up for him. His 8s inherently kind of have this air of judgy anyway, sometimes. So it's because they're like very high strung at times, which can feel like they're casting a judgment or they're
Yeah.
trying to take control of a situation because they have a judgment. And they try to kind of right all of the wrongs in the world. And if you're righting a wrong that somebody else doesn't perceive as a wrong, it will feel like a judgment. I have had to tell him that so many times because his brother, I would love to do an assessment for. I don't think no, I haven't done one for him yet. So he will get mad at this poor guy for the silliest of things, but it's because he believes he should be spending his time doing X instead of Y. So he'll call him and be like, well, you were busy doing blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, that feels like a judgment. To the point where his brother before has like lied to him, which then again is a judgment. So then his judgment is like, oh, well, you believe that you should be doing something different, so you lied. No, no,
Right.
no. He's lying so you don't give him a bunch of shit for it.
Right. This is like, I don't want to deal with you, so I'm
This
going
is
to
like, I
tell
don't want
you
to
a
deal with
story.
you,
Yeah. Yep.
but
The
that's
eight,
weak.
yeah.
Remember.
Well, and there definitely can be from eights, it can come off a little like one. This is another place where eights
Mm-hmm.
can come off a little like one, but the I know better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know better because, and they can back
Mm-hmm.
it up with all the reasons why they think they know better. But
Oh,
it's a little bit
sure.
like everybody's living their own life. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it made me think of like another rabbit hole. Maybe I shouldn't go down this one, but it's like the two siblings raised in the same house,
Mm-hmm.
but they aren't actually raised in the same house and they don't actually experience their parents the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like everybody's in this unique little thing that's happening to them, even if they're in the same environment. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the same environment to each individual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should do an episode on that. That would be fun.
Yeah, it would be.
Do siblings?
So, yes.
All right. 9.
Nine.
Last but not least, you
Nines.
live with a 9. One
I
of
live
my
with a
favorite
nine.
9s.
I think for them, they get really judgy about people who are overly aggressive. Like, why do you need to be like that? Right? Like, you don't need to be that way.
Actually, really scared for your husband to meet my husband.
He deals.
Really scared.
He has other eight friends, so he deals with it pretty well. But there can be that like why, and then I know that for Aaron, when he's judging himself, it's a lot around like there's so much to do and now I'm procrastinating. And so he can be really hard on himself for being a procrastinator. And he is a procrastinator, but he can really like be hard on himself for that. I would say nines are probably outwardly one of, if not the least judgmental number on the Enneagram.
Oh, sure.
Outward
I could see that.
outwardly. Yeah, because they are so much of this like wanting to see all perspectives and wanting to keep the peace. And if you're judging, that might rock the boat and you don't want to rock the boat. At the same time, I think in safe spaces behind, closed doors with people that they feel safe to do it in, they can be judgmental about things that have felt hurtful or choices people have made or things like that. Being left out, I know that has come up in our house sometimes too, where like friends have made decisions where, it's like, oh, well, but why didn't they invite us or why didn't they invite me? That kind of thing. And then having judgment about it. Well, it must be because XYZ. I don't know. That's not super in depth. Maybe we need to have a nine come on the podcast and we'll add it to our list of things we ask podcast guests.
Sounds like a good topic.
Yeah. Anyway, we made it through all nine numbers. Only a little bit of rabbit holing in there. We did not talk about our Thanksgiving family experiences. We could just save that for another day.
Sounds like a good plan. It sounds like we need a minute from that.
Yes. If you've made it to the end of this episode, thank you for hanging on through all nine numbers and a couple of rabbit holes while we talked about judgment. We would love for you to like, share, subscribe, follow, comment, leave a review, all the things. That really helps us. If this is something that you enjoyed, one of the very best things could be for you to share it with a friend who you think might get something out of it. We're on all the places except Facebook. Did I miss anything?
No, this was fun. How
Yeah.
organized. Wow.
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 We
Don't
just
get used
needed
to
an
it.
Yeah, don't get used to it. This is like once every 5 episodes we do it in order and we make it through all the numbers
100.
in order. Yeah. Okay. We did it.
Awesome.
All right.
See ya.
Talk to you later.
Bye.